What's up, family? Welcome to another episode of Another Avenue, the podcast where we practically and intentionally engage the art of yielding because God's word directs our paths. It's another episode, brother.
Another episode. I'm excited.
Man, I'm hype about it. I think it's gonna be a good time today.
Good time.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
But I'm excited about the topic of discussion today.
Mm-hmm.
How was your week?
Great week. Busy week.
Yeah.
Preparing for all that's happening this week.
Yeah.
And then crazy weekend. Tried to rest, but somebody wanted to run a mile. This past weekend.
Yeah.
By my recommendation, by the way.
That was true.
Yeah, but it was cool. How about you?
It was good, man. It was good. We are in the middle of hosting GNL,
Yes.
Garnett Nabrit Lecture Series, which is put on by American Baptist College.
Absolutely.
And the president is our very own Reverend Dr. Forrest E. Harris.
Yes.
And so we're excited to have them on the campus this week. They're actually in the process of setting up and getting ready for all of that good stuff. So we're hype about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this past week has been crazy busy. Crazy busy. My wife's birthday is coming up and all that kind of stuff. So we're getting ready for
Come
that.
on, birthday.
But also, oh man, bro.
Uh-oh.
So I was on my way home.
Okay.
This had to be Thursday night, I think.
Okay. All right.
Thursday night, making my way back up to Hendersonville,
Mhm.
and the exit before I get home. So it's two exits,
Uh-huh.
the one before and the one I take.
Right.
Somewhere in between there, I hit a pothole
Oh.
that completely busted my tire. Like it went from 40 psi to 0 instantly.
Oh, wow.
But the beauty was I just so happened to have a run flat.
Okay, help us with what that is. Help us.
A run flat is a steel reinforced sidewall on your tires
Okay.
that when cars don't come equipped with a spare tire,
Mm-hmm.
the run flat allows you to get an extra 50 or so miles, I think it is, so that even though you suffered injuries along the journey, you can keep rolling.
Yeah.
Right? And so, yeah, man, I mean, got out, looked at it. The side, it busted the steel part. Like these holes up here in Tennessee. I know we have potholes in Alabama, but these Tennessee potholes are holes to God knows where.
So unexpected too.
Yes. So, did that. That happened. Made it home.
Uh-huh.
But that just started this chain of events that I wasn't prepared for. Not only having to buy tires, right, or a tire or tires, but just the stress that came along with the grief, because the next day was an off day, but the off day turned into a tire day. and so you're calling around trying to find people who had a tire you're looking for and all of that kind of stuff. And it's just a reminder to me that life happens, right?
Yeah.
And it happens out of nowhere. And I find myself, I have a tendency to like hyper focus.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't think about anything else except getting that tire fixed. And so it was just a frustrating experience to live with that and deal with that.
Yeah.
Right. I'm grateful we didn't wreck. We were safe.
He is a keeper.
Yes, he was
a
keeper.
keeper.
So I mean that was great.
Yeah.
Right. But it does get me to thinking.
Okay.
About the things that happen to us in our lives.
Yeah.
That cause us injury along the journey.
My Lord.
And so, how do we handle them? What do we do with them? And you know what? I think Another Avenue is the perfect place to address this topic. Because at some point, we all suffer injury.
Yeah.
We all deal with tragedy. Tragedy you could be prepared for or not, right? Yeah. Things you expected, but a lot of things we did not.
My Lord. It's interesting because this whole term injury, is something that we find out about early on in life.
And this is good.
The trajectory the vibe, the energy from everybody when we first find out about injury is something that we really should carry our whole life. So I think for most of us, where we found our first piece of injury was falling off a bike.
Absolutely. Falling
Unless
off you
a bike.
touch the stove and got burned.
Why are you in the kitchen? Like,
Right.
please, they got to put bars up for you. But yeah, falling off a bike. And here's what I like about falling off a bike. Everybody, we all had the same family. Don't even know it.
Right.
Everybody's family said, get back up.
Mm-hmm. Get back on it.
Get back on it.
And keep riding.
Keep going.
Woo. Man.
And I think that's how we have to deal with the bigger injuries that come with our lives. But that can be a struggle.
Oh, absolutely.
A big struggle.
Yeah. I've heard stories. My grandmother, actually, God rest her soul.
Yeah.
She passed back in 2017. She was over 80 when she passed, and she drove like once in her life.
Wow.
My granddaddy had her drive, and she hit something, and it scared her.
Wow.
Suffered injury.
Yeah.
And she never drove again. And I think that's the reason why we all have the same family. I think there's something within us that knows if you don't get back up and if you don't try it again, that injury might affect you in a major way forever.
And you'll impact other people because you didn't try again.
You're taking me too fast. I'm not ready. I'm not ready for this. So yeah, and what are some of those injuries, man? Like I think we have to deal with, of course, grief and death, right?
Yeah.
Those are the big ones.
Big ones.
Everybody thinks about.
Yeah.
But I think hurt, in relationship, breakups.
Yeah.
What you got? What are you thinking? What are you thinking about?
I mean, I haven't been here long, just 24 years. So, but I have endured some injuries. And I think those friend injuries are something serious, especially when you don't call everybody your friend, but you have that core group of individuals and I'm about to get country, let one of them
and one of them
act up. Like what kind of tension that breeds through the whole group, or for you if it's you alone. And I think, especially not to jump off the ministry end, but especially in ministry, those core group of individuals, when you have that one person or a few people who cause injury due to ministry, like we not about to fall out over
the right. Yeah.
Tough.
Yeah, and so all of those things and more, and I'm sure the people watching have so many injuries that they've probably already been reminded of just hearing the first few minutes of this talk, right?
Yeah.
Like there's so many things that all of us have endured.
Yeah.
So many injuries we've suffered along the journey. But I don't know. There might be a sermon coming about the lesson from a run flat. I don't know why, but like we've got to be able to keep going.
Yeah.
And we have to do the fighting to get up again. And to try. What you thinking?
I got it about your run flat. Your run flat.
Yeah.
Your tire had something built in it.
Listen.
For you to be able to keep going.
Listen.
So we want you to keep going. We promise we do. We want you to keep going.
Yes.
But you will not be able to go anywhere
if there's not something.
If there's not something on the inside.
Within. Absolutely.
Telling you to go ahead.
And telling me to run on. But, right, so, like, yeah. And I was, they told me when I got the car that was a part of it. But I didn't know. Here's what messed me up. I didn't know until the injury happened that there was no spare. I didn't know. When I started looking it up after I got home, I realized, because I was able to drive the car home.
Yeah.
On the tire with zero pressure.
Wow.
Because the tire was designed to give me that extra mileage to get to a safe place or a place of maintenance and repair, right? Yeah. So, when you think about that, how are we
Mm-hmm.
as believers, how are we as Christians, how are we as God's people and God's children, how
Yeah.
are we to navigate these injuries, right?
Mm.
But I think of course, it's cool to be a therapist.
Yeah.
I love narrative therapy more than anything. I like for people to tell me a story and to tell me their story, because there's power in our stories.
Yeah.
And so, what's happened to you?
Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
Let's jump right in.
Yeah. What's happened to you?
My biggest injury. I'll start with my biggest one. I feel that my biggest injury, my biggest pothole in life, was November 27th, 2020.
Okay.
So earlier in the year, like around June-ish, my mama had surgery.
Okay.
She had some kind of knots on her foot. I don't think they were spurs or nothing like that, but it was something that was making her uncomfortable, and she wanted to get them removed so that she could walk with comfort. I mean, she could walk, she could do everything that she just wanted them off. So she had surgery on the first leg, foot. Goes well, everything is good. Had a brief scare, but we was all good. Second surgery, she was like, I think I want to go on and get it done. I was like, perfect. Do it. If you want to do it, this is your body, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
You do it, and the recovery won't be as long if you wait and try to do them, at different times, because when people have surgeries, hip replacements, knee replacements, doctors even say, just go on, knock out both of them, so you won't have to worry about this at a later date. So she has both of them.
Let me pause. And the pain is still kind of fresh on your mind. So you can go ahead and, you're in the rhythm of it. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's good. That's good.
Lord.
In the rhythm of pain.
Yeah.
My Lord. But yeah, she has those surgeries, and things started going well until they didn't. And I remember she had a scare where she passed out, but she came back too immediately, or after a few seconds, and it was nothing. So I'm in school at the University of Alabama. I'm trying to get my education. I mean, I'm passing with flying colors. Like, I got a 4.0 at the University of Alabama, and on president's list, on dean's list, president of organizations on campus. I mean, I'm doing it. At the University of Alabama. Dream school, dream life. I'm living it. November 27th. The day before the Iron Bowl. I remember it vividly. The day before the Iron Bowl.
You Bama fan. But anyway.
We won that year, by the way. I just want to say that. Yeah. I was working for the athletic department at that time.
Okay.
And I was managing the South End Zone suites. So where the Crimson Tide is in the end zone, that suite there, I was managing that.
Okay.
So I had to get back because people could bring their alcoholic beverages into the stadium.
Come on.
But they couldn't bring them on game day. They had to bring them a couple days before.
Okay.
So that, it can be cold for them and they can be good. So I had to get back for that. I leave home. My mama, before I left, she was like, I'm having chest pains. So I'm going to go to the doctor tomorrow if I'm still having these issues. So I'm like, okay, cool. Keep me updated. Let me know what's going on. Drive all the way back to Tuscaloosa. Go to work. Have fun. Go on the field. Chill. Talk to her.
Wow.
When I get to the stadium, I'm at work talking to her. She's cool. She's like, I'm still having these chest pains and all that. So I'm like, well, I think you said you was going to the doctor tomorrow. I think you might need to consider going ahead and knocking that out. This was around 5-ish, maybe 5-ish, 6. I leave work because I know I was super slow at this time. Y'all don't get that as much today. But I was super slow, known as being super slow and getting ready. So I was smart this night. I went to Guthrie's, chicken spot in Alabama. Guthrie's, got me some chicken and in Tuscaloosa. And I said, this is gonna be my breakfast for in the morning. So let me go get this now. So in the morning I can just wake up, eat it, go out the door. Because it's the Iron Bowl, right? I go get the food, go back to my room, start working on sermons, because at this time I'm an interim pastor and all this kind of stuff. And I get a phone call after 10 from my auntie Val. Shout out to Auntie Val and all my aunties, Auntie J, all y'all. I get a phone call out of nowhere, and she's like panicking. And she says, your mother is not responding. We called the ambulance and we're trying to get them here. Now, I'm from Notasoga, Alabama.
It's going to take a minute.
It's going to take a minute for the ambulance to get there. There's the police don't come to where we live because it was high crime. It's almost like they were scared of us. Right? So she's like, she's not responding. We're trying to get her back. We're trying to get her awake. She said she was very hot and we were giving her ice and all this, but she's not responding. So I immediately start praying. I mean, I'm real holy and spiritual, right? I immediately started praying and I'm like, nah, God.
let's go on and talk about this.
I talked to you this morning and you didn't tell me that none of this was happening before. So I literally prayed for God to heal, but also let your will be done and let me be okay with it. But I would prefer, God, if you would heal. I literally felt, I kid you not, I'm not joking or exaggerating. I literally felt that my prayers were not reaching God. It literally felt like my prayer was bouncing off the dorm room and just hit me back on my body. So I took that as God's about to do what he want to do. And he's not going to answer my prayer this time. So I got all my stuff, got in my car. I drove home. Called my dad. He's at a football game at this time. I couldn't call my pastor because my pastor go to sleep with the chickens. Like,
okay.
So I already knew he was asleep. I called Lee Walker because I knew he was a brother, right? And I could call him and he prayed for me and all that kind of stuff.
Shout out to Lee Walker.
Shout out to Lee Walker.
Lee B. Walker.
Lee B. Walker Jr.
That's it. There you go.
And one of my friends, one of my homegirls, Amy, I called her as well. And gave all of them a rundown of what was going on, telling them I'm on the way home. Mom has died. And I drive 2.5 hours home, not mad at God initially. I worshiped the whole way home. I literally went the whole ride listening to James Fortune. I trust you, even though I can't see. And I can't feel your touch. I trust you, Lord. I love you so much. Though my nights may seem long, and I feel so alone. I'll trust you, Lord. So I get home. My uncle calls me. I'm on the way home. He calls and is like, "Are you ready for this? We're gonna hold the funeral home off till you get here, and let you have your moment with your mother." So I get home. He meets me outside and he's like, "Sure, you ready?" I'm like, "I'm good." I literally go in the house. Mom had a pulmonary embolism. It's a where you have a blood clot.
English, please.
Yeah, it's where you have blood clots in your lower extremities, and it rushes to your heart, and it makes you feel hot. So that's why she was saying she was hot. She didn't die in pain; she just died hot. So that's why they were giving her ice, trying to cool her down. But that rush just made her hot. So I go in. She's laying on the floor at this point. They had her on the bed. Ambulance did come, but it was too late at that time. She's laying on the floor, dead. And I literally walked in the room and was like, "Mom, you done slipped on up out of here. That's crazy." Get down, literally have my whole moment. And when I get up, I say, "God, I don't know what you're doing, but I trust you." And I believe.
I don't know how you not crying, but I'm over here. Bruh.
I think, honestly, that's the day I started believing God. I believed in God for 19 whole years, but on November 27th, 2020, that's the day I started believing God. So, you go there a whole week. We're in the middle of the pandemic, by the way. Everybody's like, did she die from the pandemic? Did she die from corona? No, she didn't die from corona. And I think that's what, I probably would have been a little bit okay if it had been coronavirus. But we got a whole pandemonium going on.
Right. The panorama.
The panorama is going on. What?
Yeah.
And she dies from a pulmonary embolism out of nowhere. Having fun. And what's crazy is the Sunday before she passed, I preached a sermon at my home church about David's son.
Yeah.
Who he was fasting for him to live, and he didn't live. So he got up from the floor and he washed his face and he fed himself.
Yeah, after that, yeah.
That was the Sunday before she died. I literally preached my life.
The Sunday
before.
My Lord.
So here I am today. literally a motherless child. And I've lived from 19 to 24 trying to navigate the terrains of being motherless.
And that spawned a chain of events
In my life.
that have that have brought you to where you are today.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I initially was trusting God and I was good with God, but then me and God started having problems because I started thinking.
Oh, I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
I started thinking like, God, I'm out here doing everything. So I think that you want me to do. I'm pastoring this church. I'm preaching your word. I'm in school. I'm doing all of the good stuff. I'm being a good child. I'm making good grades. I ain't bothering nobody. I mean, and I'm like, you tripping.
Can we sit here for a second?
Let's sit.
Because there's this great tendency among us as believers to, because as you were telling your story, I'm quiet because I'm thinking about my own. There's this great tendency among us to think we've got leverage with God.
Yeah.
that God owes us something, that any amount of righteousness within us should put us in a position to bargain with him. And he'll prove to you through injury. Where were you, Job? Yeah.
Toughest injury in my life. I preached the funeral. And
No. You gotta tell me. You gotta tell us. Tell us. What was that like for you?
It was hard, but I feel like that was the best sermon I ever preached in my life. And not so much because it was her funeral, it was because I was able to talk directly to my people. For all my ministry, I've been helping everybody else's family and helping everybody else get through stuff and walking everybody else through cemeteries and walking everybody else through struggles. But no, this time I got to get my family together with God's word. And send mama home. Right.
Yes, sir.
The only part I hate about it was we was in the middle of the pandemonium and we had to have the ceremony outside at the cemetery. If we would have made it to the sanctuary.
Oh, that would have been it.
It would have been
that would have been it.
Yeah. Yeah. So my pastor is notable for telling me, and I think this is good for everybody to know. Then we got to hear your story. Whenever you go through injuries, potholes, loss, grief of any kind, but specifically death, and you want to talk to your loved one, he said to me and my dad, we were in the car together, he said, talk to God because he's the only one that can talk to both of y'all at the same time.
I mean, I just think we should be done like this. Like what? But before I tell mine, in some strange way, God has and is using what it did to you and what happened to hold you and get glory out of your life. And that's crazy.
Absolutely.
That's crazy to me.
Absolutely. Last thing I left this out.
Go ahead.
And I'm sure my brother doesn't kill me sharing this. My brother, my mama's son, oldest son, my older brother, he was incarcerated at the time. He was incarcerated when she died. Because of the pandemic, they did not let him come to the funeral. So I literally don't have nobody in this house that I'm living in. I'm literally alone. Tough.
And alone is a good place to learn to talk to God. Yeah.
You've had some potholes.
I have. I've had quite a few. But there are two that stick out to me.
Okay.
I may only get through one,
All
to
right.
be honest.
Okay.
So I met Bria, the love of my life, in 2016.
Okay.
We got engaged, and I proposed to her in 2016. 2017, we're getting ready to get married. But a group of friends took a trip to Disney World. She had never been.
Wow.
So we went to Disney. I had been when I was a kid or whatever, blah, 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 right? So I'm pastoring at this time, by the way. But we all go to Disney, whatever, have a good time. We were gone Sunday to Wednesday, right? And this is going to prove important. So Sunday, I had to preach twice.
Yeah.
You know, this was Bama Church afternoon service, right? Preaching engagement type stuff.
For Roach Day.
Right. Any day. So little context. My grandmother had been, this is my maternal grandmother. She had been sick, dealing with some problems, but it wasn't anything like super, super major, at least so we thought. But she had been down and been out of church for like almost a month, maybe. Yeah. Because I was my grandmother's pastor, my mama, dad's pastor, all of that, right? And she ends up getting better. And her first Sunday back at church is the day we leave to go to Disney.
Wow.
So she comes back to church, and she was a quiet lady. Just woman, 4'11", 5 foot, little small, little quiet little lady. She was nice, but she was just quiet. Yeah. This particular Sunday, I remember being in the sanctuary, and me and Dr. English used to sit beside each other against the wall while we waited for church to start. She was just kind of bouncing around talking to everybody, right? And it was out of character for her. Yeah. And so we went to Olive Garden in Oxford after church to prepare to go. So everybody went as a family, and then we went to the second service. And so I preached the second service, and immediately after I preach, I have to leave to catch our flight. Yeah. We had to get to Atlanta, catch the flight to go to Florida. Well, she goes to the second service, but she knew she wasn't going to see me. So she stops me in the parking lot and says, "Byron, I didn't get my hug." So I go back to her, give her a hug, and we go get in our separate cars, and everybody makes their way to, this is the grandma that didn't drive, so she was riding with somebody. So we make our way to the church. Leave the church, go to Florida, have a good time. On the way back, we were flying out like early afternoon, headed back from Orlando. And it was so strange to me because people were like, number one, my phone was oddly quiet, but the people who were contacting me were people who didn't normally contact me. But one specific call was from my secretary at the time at the church. She wrote me because I was getting back in time so that we could have Bible study that night. I was going to teach. So I was getting back just in time. So I had it mapped out. We're sitting in the airport waiting on the flight. She calls me and she's like, "Hey, are we having Bible study tonight?" And I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" She's like, "Oh, nothing. All right, I'll see you when you get back." I ain't think nothing about it because I don't like to fly. My anxiety was just wearing me out, right? Yeah. So we take off, fly, whatever, land. And I'm one of those people that as soon as we hit the ground, their plane slows down, I take my phone off of airplane mode. Take my phone off airplane mode, and I've got message after message after message after message. Call mama. Call your mama. Hey, call home. Yeah. My grandma died Tuesday night. Wow. And nobody wanted to tell me while I was gone. But you had to understand my relationship with my grandma. Like, my grandma was the kind of lady that she was like, when I started preaching and pastoring, she was one of them old school church mother types. She said, "Don't no preacher need to be out here alone. Yeah. So I'm going to be your wife until you get one." The the way God showed up in this whole story is crazy.
Mm.
But because Bria, we were engaged, about to get married. Bria was going to the church already. She decided on her own to go ahead and join the church the day we left for Disney. Hear my grandmother's words. I'm going to be your wife until you get one. Whenever I was going to preach, my responsibility was to call my grandmother and tell her what day it was, what time I was coming to pick her up. She would ride with me to my preaching engagements. My mama was sick at the time, dealing with rheumatoid arthritis. I wrote my grandmother's checks. She just wasn't a business lady like that. Like I would write her checks for her. Every Friday, my late grandfather's sister and another lady in the community, I would have to take them, because in the country, Friday is fish day.
Yes.
And so I had to go to top of the river in Anderson, which was also my first job. But anyway, I had to go to top of the river and get them whole catfish plates. We just had a super close relationship, man.
Yeah.
Well, nobody wanted to tell me. She passes and we're sitting on the runway waiting for planes to move. And I'm bawling. Excuse me, in a plane with my fiance and our friends. And I'm like, what just happened here? And I'm literally crying out. Like people are looking around like, what's going on? Like I'm crying out because I'm in shock.
Yeah.
And so it was really tough for me because the family also wanted me to do her eulogy. Now my experience wasn't your experience. That was the best sermon you ever preached. It was probably the worst one I ever preached. There was this thing at Greater Thankful where when I became the pastor, Dr. English was still there, so they would have us tag team a lot of funerals. So we both do a shortened eulogy. Dude, that was probably, in my opinion, the best sermon he ever preached.
Wow.
Best eulogy he ever did. And I'm grateful for people, for friends. Shout out to Cameron Thomas and Daniel Johnson.
Yeah.
Also, Corey Powell and Aaron Connor, two classmates that I went to seminary with. But those four guys, man, walked with me through that. And it was one of the toughest times of my life. And so just living with the injury. Other one real quick, because that was big. Yeah. But this one was when Bria and I got pregnant the first time.
Yeah.
2018, newly married, happy, do the whole photo shoot, we're pregnant kind of thing, right? Yeah. And the day we go to find out the gender of the baby, as they're doing the ultrasound to determine the gender, they tell us that the baby has died in the womb.
Wow.
I'm a pastor. I'm preaching your word. Don't this sound familiar? That's why I told you a few minutes ago. So I'm preaching your word. I'm being faithful to you. I'm not perfect, but I'm faithful.
And I'm trying.
I'm trying my best. And then this safe space, right?
Safe space.
We did it right.
Yeah.
We didn't have sex before we got married. And in your pain and your anger, you're like, now you blessing everybody else out here with a child.
Yeah.
Why me? Why us?
Wow.
And then you got the nerve to want me to keep serving you through this. Through it. Not on the other side of it. Through it. You want me to keep preaching through this? You want me, and then there's all the other little injuries that serve as residuals, like people who just don't know. Watch my mouth. People who just don't know what to say.
Mm.
Bria's first week back at church, a lady, sweet lady. I don't think she meant any harm, but she said, "Oh, baby, you'll be all right. Y'all just have another one."
Mm. Wow.
And you don't know how bad I had to suppress the protector in me, right? I mean,
Yeah.
because you're already living in an injury,
Yeah.
and then you suffer these other little injuries or these added insults to injury. And it's tough. So what do we do?
I think to not answer that question.
Okay.
First of all,
Okay,
I'm not answering
okay.
that question, but the added insults to injury part.
Mm.
I had an added insult to injury from God.
Oh, I got to hear
I
this.
literally, another lady in Alabama, I need to find you, by the way, because this is about to explain. She had the same thing my mama had, a pulmonary embolism, and lived.
Oh.
And you just don't know what my prayers were.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to meet that lady.
Mm.
Because she's the living embodiment that
Oh.
God can do it.
I was about to say of what God could have done and chose not to do for you.
We need to wrap this up.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
need to wrap this up.
So I think what we learned today,
Okay.
is that injuries, the potholes of life, are the places where we not only get hurt,
Yeah.
but they're the places where we learn who God is.
Yeah.
Like the real God of the
The
Bible.
real God.
Like not the Sunday school, not the prosperity gospel God.
Yeah.
The God of the Bible. The God who wipes out cities.
And lets babies die. And let drunk drivers. And
The God who lets drunk drivers kill other people and live.
yeah.
Yeah. And so we have to be mindful.
Yeah.
When the injuries occur, that these are not the places where God has dropped us off and left us. These are the places where God seeks to draw us closer. Because I can tell you this. The injuries, most of them didn't make a man out of me.
Yeah.
But they did make a man of faith out of me.
My Lord.
Because the thing I realize is, and I'm through, the thing I realize is, where am I going to go? It's like you got me boxed in. You've been so good to me. But at the same time, you bruise me. Where am I going?
Who can I run to?
Come on. Yes, sir.
Wow.
But yeah, that's it. I don't know what else to talk about, honestly.
Just keep going. Keep going.
That's all we got for you. Keep going.
Keep going.
Life is real. Life hurts, but God is there.
And like the preacher said Sunday, Reverend Dr. Sharon
Yes,
Caldwell,
she did.
life be lifing.
Yes.
It'd be lifing sometimes.
Yeah.
But she has some questions for us.
What we gonna do?
What we gonna do?
What are you gonna believe?
What we gonna believe?
And who are you gonna trust? But the beautiful thing about Psalm 121 is that I will look unto the hills.
Yes.
But she made a beautiful turn.
Yes.
To the hill.
The hill.
Y'all be blessed.
Bye.
I'm excited.
Oh, yeah.
This gonna be.
Let's have my glasses on.
I might need to get some tissue before I get to cry.
Yeah, we do these.
I might get to cry. I'm not playing. Let's put it on to the side just in case. The funny part is I can